Alright, now we're going to create this area of our map. We're going to look at using the blend tool and also working with compound shapes and expanding those compound shapes. Alright, so to get started, I'll just use my pen tool and I'll click once, hold the shift key, and click a second time. Now my fill is already set at 1. But you may have to adjust your weight, excuse me, not your fill, but the weight for the stroke. Now I'll leave 1 point. That'll be perfectly fine. Now what I'll do is get the selection tool, and I'm going to click right on my path. And I'll click hold and begin to drag. And as I drag, I'm actually moving my line segment. So I'm going to hold the option key down, and I'll continue to hold the option key. You'll see you now have the double arrows. What we're doing is a drag copy. So the original line will stay at the top and this one will go wherever I release it. So if I hold the shift key simultaneously while I continue to hold the option key, I will constrain this drag copy to a perfect vertical path. So I'm going to bring this down to the bottom like so. Okay, so now I have 2 line segments, and I need to create all these line segments in between. There happens to be 21 more lines, basically, or positions for lines. You notice there's not one right here. Well, I'll deal with that in a moment. So I could do, excuse me, I could do the step that I just went through 21 more times, 20 more times. Well, that might take it might just take too long. So let's go ahead and do this. Let's use our blend tool. And what we're going to do is blend this shape and this shape or path. So let's get the tool, blend tool. If I double click on the tool, I'll get the blend options. For my spacing, I'm going to use specified steps. And on my orientation, if we're not going to, but if I were to move one of the points that are going to be created, then each of my line segments would stay in orientation to the page. Notice how these go up. There's a curve here, but each will maintain orientation to the page. In this curve, notice, or I should say in this option, in this orientation, if we made a curve, then each individual piece would follow that curvature. Okay, so I'm going to keep the orientation on page. My steps, I'll need 21 steps. So I already have that here. Who knows, whoever used it last might have had 8 or 10 or 12. But we need 21. So we'll click OK. And now we'll click with the tool on this path. Doesn't look like anything happens, but it does. Then I'll go down to this path. You'll see the plus sign. And I will click again. Alright, so if I get the selection tool, all of this is one group. Alright, one group. So I don't want to go into isolation mode and deal with this as a group. I just want them individual. Okay, so isolation mode. This is a group. If I double click, I'll go into isolation mode. Now I can select each one of these. Okay? So here's the blend. This is the student work layer. I see this gray bar across the top, so it knows I'm in isolation mode. But this is a single object. This is still part of a group. So it just sort of becomes a pain. So what we'll do is expand that compound shape so it's no longer associated with this group. So let's just click on our arrow and go back one level. We're out of the blend. We'll go back another level and exit isolation mode. So now this is just one big group. Alright, so with our group selected, let's go to Object and we're going to expand. And we'll probably get this window here. And what do we need to expand? I certainly want to expand the object. I'm not going to bother with the fill and the stroke at this point. I'll just expand the object as a whole. So let's click OK. So now, if I deselect, I still get all of the objects because they're part of a group. So let's just, instead of isolation mode, let's just ungroup. I'll deselect, and now each of these is separate. So right down here, I didn't need one. So if I just select this one and delete it, it can be just like we had. Now you notice they're not perfect. I just have the basic steps in. So if you wanted to make each of these match, I could move them up until they were closer to those original positions. Now I prefer them evenly spaced, but that's not how they are on the map, and we're trying to match the map. So I'll just get this into basic position here. A couple more. I'm using the arrow keys on the keyboard to move these up. Alright, so I need one more, the one I deleted. So let's just do an option drag to review that. Click on your path, hold the option key, begin to drag, hold the shift key to constrain. Alright, so now we have all of our lines in position. If we go ahead and click and drag a marquee around all of these, they will all be selected. Let's go ahead and make them a group again. So let's go back to Object and Group. So now these will all move as one single group. Let's do Command Z to undo them. If you want to edit them individually, you can double click on the group. You'll notice the rest of your artwork grays out. You'll see the student work layer and group, and you're isolated to working with just this group. So if you wanted to move something, you could. Alright, I'll undo this, bring it back. Let's get out of isolation mode, so I'll go back one level, and then I'll go ahead and get out of the student level work layer, and we're back with our regular artwork. Okay, so using the blend tool to create multiple steps, and also using the expand to break a compound element. Alright, we'll end this video and then we'll come back and we'll quickly create the remaining parts of this area of our map.